While the Elixni or Fallen are our enemies for the meantime, they are a species whose goals are closest to ours. Even Cayde sums this up in the Lake of Shadows strike.
The Fallen are chattering about this on every feed. As much as I hate to admit it, we have a common goal when it comes to protecting this place. It's their home too.
Whether we wanted it or not, Earth is now just not only our home, but the Fallen's as well, as they try to adapt and survive. This brings up Variks the Loyal in his quest to bring the Fallen together and rebuild their once great species back before the Whirlwind. Today we discuss what Variks means with all this, where he's went, and what he's become in the process.
I will cut my throat before I become a slave again. Listen long enough, and you shall hear of great Elixni heroes. When the Great Machine was with us. Do you think the Great Machine has noticed what we did? Will it speak to me again? Tell me where the Great Elixni have gone.
Alright Guardians, hope you are doing well and welcome back to the channel. So recently I made this video here where I read all 13 Variks lore cards from Forsaken's release. So that video is like a story pretty much, me reading the cards one after another, sort of like an audiobook. But today we're going to recap what all of that meant and what it can mean for the future of the Fallen, so basically summarize it up a bit. Let's first begin with Intel Source Green Raven. So throughout Forsaken and even events prior, like when the Fallen pulled out of the Cosmodrome, a secretive source began to relay information back to the city. That's a lie, the Fallen are abandoning the Cosmodrome. Hawk flyovers confirm the House of Devils forces are simply not there anymore. They've been disorganized for the last few years, but there's never been a shortage of ground troops whenever we stage a significant sortie. Intel Source Green Raven was right, and for the moment it's worth assuming the report on the House of Exiles, Winter, and Wolves are also accurate. We're fact-checking against independent fireteam reports from the field. So there we learned that Green Raven was giving information about why the Fallen were leaving the Cosmodrome, and sort of had some intel behind the scenes on what the Fallen were trying to do, merge together and become the Dusk. When the Red War began, Variks tried broadcasting a warning to the city as Intel Source Green Raven, but of course, he was too late. Here's some lines from that card. In his role working with the Guardians of the City, he'd poured over the distress signal from the Dentalian Exodus 6. Source Green Raven had sent bursts of analysis to the tower at least a dozen times since the days of the Taken War, but he never expected numbers of this magnitude. With the systems of the last city offline, he had no problem dialing sensors over the wall. He'd been able to see with clarity the home of humanity with a resolution where he could make out parks and lakes and marketplaces. These same sensors let him watch, grinding the bone in his mechanical fist as people died, as the Great Machine was yoked, and as the Guardians fell. So after the city had fallen to the Red Legion, Variks began to question what his true purpose was here and at the reef now. His queen was gone, humanity and ally was in great trouble, and the Elixni were on the edge of extinction. Here in the reef, the Prison of Elders was the only thing Variks and Petra kind of had full control over. It was the little left the Awoken had to call their own. So in this prison, Variks warned Petra of these scorned dregs and how they are way more powerful than they seem. In a world without Kell's, dreg strength will breed nothing but chaos, Variks whispered to himself the old Rain proverb, wishing for the return of the decisive days of his queen, his Kell. Petra, however, did not fully appreciate the threat these scorned barons posed. He had tried to warn her when they were just 7 dregs in a heretical archon. Now their terror was spreading throughout the reef, with more and more Fallen answering the barons' anarchist call. So here Variks is sort of introducing the barons as dregs and how they can be a big problem if they're not dealt with. Petra kind of brushes it off and says it's nothing big. Now Variks at this point was conserving his ether, so he was pretty weak, and Petra even pointed it out to him. For those that don't know, Fallen basically need this ether to survive. The more ether they have, the bigger and stronger they become, so Variks was kind of rationing his own here in the prison. He then knew the time would come when he was forced to survive on his own. After the Taken War, the scorned barons banded together in a time of weakness to become strong, to prey on anyone and anything that practiced the old Elixni ways. They began with the one thing their people needed to survive: ether. In a way, the barons became heads of a new house, priests in their own rights, and arbiters of their own trials. So fast forward a little bit and all these barons are in their cells, but one still remained, and that was Fikrul the Fanatic. While he scoured the halls of this prison, Variks thought about his race and how one true hope still remained. The only Kell that still survived could be on Earth under the banner of the House of Kings, and his name was Krask. If Variks could find Krask, he could rebuild what was lost and possibly make his once great race great again. So he went and hired one of the prisoners to locate the King Kell and sort of give him some intel on where he may be. The prisoner responded. King Kell is gone, Kellmaker, dead at the hands of the insane Archon Fikrul and some awoken vagabond he calls father. What remains of the kings huddles now in the dead zones of Earth under the shadow of the great machine's shard. So this prisoner named Grask who gave Variks this information was basically useless, but Variks knew he wasn't the type to lie. This meant that his last hope, the Kell of Kings, was gone, and Fikrul, the leader of the barons, still lived. Variks then met with Cayde 6 in the spider's lair while Cayde was gambling away with the spider's people. Variks, disguised, slipped through the crowd and met with Cayde at a table in the corner. Variks told Cayde about how the reef is struggling and how Fikrul still lives. Cayde doesn't believe him, says he put a bullet right through his chest a while back. Eventually, after some arguing and some bribery from Variks, Cayde agrees to take Variks to the city and meet with Commander Zavala. In the city, Variks was marveled at the sight of this Titan vanguard. He knew he was quite large, but he can see most of this just appeared to be his armor. He bent his knee as he spoke about the reef's troubles and how he's trying to save what still remains. Zavala listens. The 7th card here is the weird one. It's titled Unknown Space. Here, Variks seems to be having a dream at his desk in the prison, and whoever he's talking to could be the emissary or something related to the Nine. It says quotes like this: "You walk among them because you have failed. For you, the great machine is a dark mirror. There is only one path left for you here, in a place where everything dies and begins anew." After hearing that, the alarms of the prison sounded as Cayde had returned with the Scorn leader Fikrul. In the next couple of cards, kind of introduces Variks to Fikrul and they talk some smack about their past. After some of this bickering back and forth, Variks realized that in the other cell sits a broken prince who he once called friend and leader, Uldren. Petra and Variks decide to lock down this section of the prison due to the unforgiving nature of the barons and ultimately Prince Uldren. He wanted to keep this a secret, hoping no word would reach outside of the awoken prince and these vicious servants. Throughout his time studying these barons, Variks quickly began to notice that Fikrul's ether was corrupted, and it also had an influence on fallen dead bodies scattered on the floor. It would reanimate them and make them warriors once again. Variks stayed down in these cells a long time experimenting, trying to figure out exactly how all of this was possible and how this Scorn army was beginning to get resurrected. As the corrupted Uldren just sat there in his cell looking at nothing, Variks still believed in him and even called him Your Grace when he came to greet him. One day, Uldren told Variks this. "Your Kell lives," Uldren whispered. He leaned in a little closer and asked the one question Variks had never been able to answer. "Do you know where your true loyalty lies, Variks?" These words stuck in Variks' head, especially when Fikrul spat them out a couple of days later. Days later, Variks performed his duties for the last time, freed the barons and Uldren, and boarded a ship leaving the reef behind for a new life. Nowhere else to go, no one else to be here. He drew himself up to his full height. "And so I become Variks the Kell, House Judgment Envoy to the Eliksni people." "No choice," he repeated, chuckling deep in his throat. His voice was calm. "Eliksni must rise, yes?" So pretty crazy story, right? Try to sum it up a bit. I know it was still sort of long, but it's not exactly 40 minutes in the whole entire story, so we're good. So looking at the big picture here, Variks stuck around the prison after the Red War. The Barons showed up, Uldren showed up, and Variks thought about his true purpose and his race and decided to leave and become a Kell. No Kell leaders remained to Variks' knowledge, and if they did not know the ways of the old Eliksni like he did. They did not know what to do to make their race thrive and ultimately adapt to these new worlds. On his way out the door, Variks sort of sent these messages and alerts out to his people, claiming that they needed to band together and build what was lost long ago, and that's what he intends to do. And while Variks did open the cells which ultimately killed Cayde 6, to me I see no intention of turning on the city and becoming evil. The whole opening the cell thing was more of I couldn't take it anymore and I'm beginning a new life anyway, so I'm just gonna open these and leave. In the end though, Variks' main priority is saving the Fallen. Next to that, he still loves humanity and thinks a middle ground can be created where Fallen and humans can live in peace together. And I'm not gonna lie, seeing Variks become a Kell isn't anything too surprising. We've essentially helped him achieve this in Destiny 1 when we gave him that Elder Cipher. So I'm not sure about you, but I hope we get to see Variks again at some point when he's a Kell. He's probably gonna be, freaking huge, and I definitely hope that Bungie makes this friendly Fallen thing more prominent in future releases. Anyway Guardians, that's all I got for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for some more awesome Destiny 2 news and entertainment. My name's Cayde, and I'll catch you Guardians in the next one.